All right, so today we will be talking about resumes and cover letter writing. So everything you need to know to either start or to expand upon what you already have. So again, I'm Odessa Burkett. I'm one of the assistant directors on the SBS Career and Development team. And we have my colleague, Rachel.
Yes, hi again. My name is Rachel Noto, and I am the other assistant director on the SBS Career Team.
Awesome. And I think we can skip the intros today since we've done the last 2 days. So let's just dive right into resume writing. So I want to start by just showing some examples of what good resume looks like. And I wanted you all to take a moment just to look at these and see what is similar or what is different about them. Is it Kasan?
Yeah.
Can you notice anything that's kind of either similar or different about these resumes?
The first one looks a little unprofessional, and it's formatted a little differently.
Yep. So it's formatted differently. These are actually examples of both ones that would work. It does have that sample thing over it, so it looks a little weird. That obviously wouldn't be on an actual resume. But kind of the difference here is this first one to the left is someone who doesn't have as much experience yet. So this might be if you're, in your freshman, sophomore year, you're still, gaining more work experience, internship experience, and extracurriculars. So you can see on the left, it's a little bit more spaced out. And so you always want your resume to be one full page. So if you don't have a lot of experience yet, you can space it out a little bit more so that it still fits that nice one page. And then you can also see on the left, they have a whole section for relevant coursework. And so that is something that you can include in a resume, especially if a lot of what you're learning and skills that are applicable to opportunities you're applying to are from the classroom. And so this is an optional section. You can see on the right, they don't have that section. They do have related courses, and they just list the course name, which is also a way that you can do it. But it's really up to you. If you feel like there are skills that you can share and expand upon from in the classroom, that's experience, that's learning, right? You're learning so much just from your classes. And then you can see the sections are a little bit different as well. So they both start with education, which is what you'll want as a full-time student right now, to lead with your education section. But then you can see on the left, there's relevant coursework, work experience, activities and leadership, and then skills. And then on the right, you have work experience, extracurricular activities at UMass, and skills and awards. So you really get to choose what your sections are. And you really want it to, be tailored to the different experiences you have. So some people might have a lot of volunteer experience and might have a whole section for volunteering. But if you don't volunteer a lot, you won't have that section. So you can really make it your own. But either way, you just want your sections to be consistent and clear. So you want the same formatting throughout, the same font size, spacing between each section. You can see on the right, they have underlined underneath each section title. You can do that, or you could just do bold like it's on the left. So there's not just one way a resume has to look, but overall you want it to be clear, one page, and easy to read with really just the information at the forefront. So you might see like fancy templates online, people that add pictures and colors. That's actually not what employers say that they really want on a resume. They really just want that relevant information and you to show that you have the skill set needed for the position. So keeping it more simple is actually best. Okay, so what are the sections? So like I said, you'll want to start, well, first you'll start with your heading. So it'll be your name and your contact information. So that could be your uh, email, phone number, LinkedIn. If you have a LinkedIn and you feel like it's good to go, you could add your LinkedIn profile and your location. And since you're not actually mailing things, you can just put your city and state. That's usually fine nowadays. And then your first section will be your education section, as I mentioned, since that's kind of like your full-time job at the moment. And so you'll put UMass Amherst, your expected graduation date. So, kind of doing the math of when you expect to graduate, even if it could change, just so the employer, let's say you're applying to an internship, they have an idea of if you're, rising junior, sophomore, of course, including any majors, minors, scholarships, awards, relevant coursework. There's a lot that you can include in that education section. And you can include your GPA. We recommend including it if it's above 3.0. And if it's not, you can just not include it. So it's really up to you what you want to include and share on your resume. And then I often get the question about, do I keep my high school on there? So usually we say once you get to your junior year, that's when you're going to want to really remove most all of your high school experiences from your resume. And that'll naturally happen too as you gain more experiences in college and you have internships and have other opportunities. You'll really want by junior year to have most of your experiences be from college at that point. Okay, and then experience section. So most every section will have some sort of experience section, whether that's just general experiences or you divide them up into more specific types of experiences. So that could be work experience, internships, research, volunteering, extracurriculars, leadership opportunities that you've done. So really anything that exemplifies the skills that you have. And even if you create your own experience, maybe you create your own podcast and you do that weekly, that's an experience you can put, even though it's not through an organization. There's so many skills that you're learning from that, and it shows the initiative and creativity that you have as well. So you can think outside the box with that as well. And then it's really good to end with a skills section. So skills can be technical skills like computer skills, any platforms that you're comfortable working with. That is one of those core competencies that we shared with you is technology. And sometimes the technical skills might come easy for you because you've used computers, most of your life, but really articulating that you have those skills is important too. So maybe you're like, oh, of course I can use Zoom. I use it for a year for all my classes, but it's still good to add that on there so that the employer can see. And so that could be, Microsoft Office Suite, Zoom, different social media platforms, if you would be comfortable using them in a professional setting. Also, if you speak any other languages, it's great to include that as well. And then if there's any other skills that you feel like you haven't gotten to through your other experiences on your resume, you can add those as well, such as, let's say you're really great at public speaking and you do it a lot, but you don't have it written down in an experience. You could put that in your skills section. Any questions so far?
May I also just add one comment as well?
Yeah.
So as you were talking about the skills section, like sometimes if you, like Odessa was mentioning, you can't fit all of those skills into that one page, you can actually put your skills on LinkedIn and like on your Handshake profile. So like as we were talking through that yesterday, those are some great areas where you can highlight your skills. And on LinkedIn, which we'll get to at the end of this week, you can get endorsed for those skills by other people that have perhaps like supervised you or worked with you before. So like your classmates can endorse you for, let's say you're an effective communicator. They can say, oh yes, like I've worked with so-and-so in class and they did a great job leading this group project, right? So there's also other places where you can list a whole thing of skills. So if you can't fit it into that one section on your one-page resume, that's totally fine as well. These are just kind of the primary skills that employers are looking for that you want to include on your resume, is what Odessa was talking about.
Awesome. Thank you for that, Rachel. And that's such a good point that employers are going to be looking at LinkedIn to find you, as well as Handshake, especially if you apply through Handshake. They're going to be cross-referencing your materials with your profiles online. Some employers do a Google search even. So really thinking about your online presence, and thinking that that's also considered, in the application process. And you can add to all your expertise there as well. Okay. All right, so I wanted to touch on transferable skills. So transferable skills are really the skills that, employers are looking for. So these are the skills employers are looking for, and often you're learning them regardless of, what types of experiences you're involved in. So even if, your only job has been at a restaurant, it doesn't mean that you're not going to be prepared for a professional internship, because you learn a lot at a restaurant job, right? You learn about teamwork and how to effectively communicate, and how to multitask and pay attention to detail. So really, thinking about articulating these types of skills on your resume and on your cover letter so that the employer can see, even if you haven't worked in that industry or have had a job that's very similar to what you want next, that you still have the skills that they're looking for. And what's really good to do is to look at the job posting, look at the internship posting that you want to apply to, and really specifically read the qualifications and requirements that they want in a candidate. And what you'll notice is it's going to be a lot of these skills, a lot of the more technical, specific, skills that you would actually do on the job. They usually teach you those, right? If there's a specific platform they use or certain procedures that they follow, you're going to need to learn that, especially if you're thinking about an internship or an entry-level position. Those are for learning. So they don't expect you to have everything, but they do want to know that you're going to be a good employee, that you're going to have leadership qualities, and a lot of these other skills that I have written down here, because that means that you're going to learn, you're going to get in there, you're going to be, work on a team well. And that's kind of the most important thing to most employers that we talk with. So really it's about knowing your audience and knowing who you're speaking to with your materials. And that's why in some of the previous presentations, I've said, you don't want every resume to be exactly the same. You can have a master resume that you create and it has, all the different experiences that you've done on it, but then always thinking about what does this employer really want in a candidate, and have I specifically, shared that I have the skills that they are looking for. And that's also good because a lot of employers use applicant tracking software, which is software that actually means a computer is reading through your application materials before a hiring manager or a person is. And that software is going to pick up on the keywords and how closely it matches the job description, with your application materials. So the more that you can sprinkle in these words, of course, being authentic and truthful and not just putting them to put them, but really thinking about, oh yeah, I did work on a team at that job and I didn't even write it down. You'll really want to use those keywords and really think about who you're speaking to each time you apply to a position. So this is an example that I wanted to share. So this is actually a opportunity that I found on Handshake, and it's a film production internship. And so what I like to do, let's say I want to apply to this job, really excited about it. So I'm going to actually highlight all the skills that they're looking for in a candidate. So you can see the ideal candidate is a self-starter, has strong attention to detail, and is willing to work with initiative, etc. So I just highlighted all the skills there. And some people like to make a list of them or just really, really copy and paste them from the job posting itself, just so you know, okay, what are the skills they're looking for? And then going through each one and saying, okay, where have I had to, exemplify strong attention to detail in my past experiences? Or where can I share that I have excellent written and verbal communication skills? And so that's really going to help you tailor these documents to a specific role. You'll also notice that in a job posting, it has the tasks and responsibilities that you'll actually be doing in the position. And so I also like to highlight these because it is great if you've done, these tasks, if you've done this before, you can speak to that as well. But it's not as important as what they want you to come in the position with already. So what you're going to be doing at the internship, again, you'll probably be learning a lot of that, which is on the right side, but they want you to have what's on the left side already coming into it. So I like to start with the requirements, right, of the job, of the candidate. And then if there's any more specific tasks that I may have done, then I can speak to those as well. All right, any questions before I go on to another example? So here's an example of, let's say I want this film production. I want to be a film production intern, so that opportunity that we were just looking at. But my only job so far has been as a Starbucks barista. So how am I going to show this, this employer, this hiring manager or hiring team, that I have the skills needed to be a great film production intern when I've worked at a coffee shop, right? So let's say you're working through the bullet points on your resume and thinking about what you can write under that experience as a Starbucks barista. One bullet point you could say is served coffee and various beverages to customers. That's truthful, but are you going to be making coffee at this internship? No, that wasn't anywhere in the job posting. They don't care how good you can make a cup of coffee. It's in the right format in the sense that it starts with an action verb. It's truthful, but it doesn't show those transferable skills. So something else you could say is effectively communicated with diverse customers to provide excellent service in a fast-paced environment. So you can see this bullet point example gets at a lot of those transferable skills: the effective communication, the working with diverse people, providing excellent service, and working in a fast-paced environment. And it's still truthful, but it's really focusing on what matters to your audience rather than every task that you did at your current job. So one more example, you could say learn how to make many drinks and prepare food. Again, truthful, but doesn't really speak to those transferable skills. So instead, you might say manage multiple tasks simultaneously with a team to accurately fulfill all orders efficiently. And again, you're speaking to multitasking, teamwork, and being an efficient, effective worker. Okay, so hopefully that helps you think about how you can write those bullet points for different experiences and really know about speaking to your audience. So let's do a little resume skills check, see if you all took away some information so far. And so if you want to either unmute yourself or you can open the chat right now and type the answer in the chat. So how long should a resume be? Okay, we have about a page long. Yes. Is it a SOSA?
Yes.
Okay, good. Yes, you are correct. So you want it to be 1 page long. And at this point, you don't want it any less and you don't want any more. So at the beginning, I showed an example of spacing, and I can go back to that because I don't think you were here at the beginning, but you always want to space it out so it's 1 full page. So if you need a little bit, let's say you don't have a lot of experiences, you can add more spacing or less spacing, and you can play with margins and things like that to keep it on 1 page. And, that once you're like years and years out of college, you might add more, but right now, one page is sufficient. I think studies show that employers look at a resume for like 5 seconds, like 5 to 10 seconds. So really just giving them the information that they need quickly, concisely is best. Okay, I haven't said this yet, so let's see if you know it without me telling you, and it's fine if you don't, but what order are experiences listed in each section? So you have, your work experience section. How do you know how to list them? You've had 3 different jobs. Awesome, Kasan. Yes, most recent is going to be at the top, and then it's going to be chronological order after that. So you really want to think about keeping it very consistent with that ordering. Now, there is one time that you might not want to keep this ordering. Let's say you've had several different jobs and an internship, but the internship that you've had is the most relevant to this next job that you want. If for any reason you don't want something to get kind of lost in the sauce, right? Like it's kind of hidden in the middle there, you can create a different section called relevant experience so that you bring that experience to the forefront, because as long as it's chronological order within each section, you're good. So you can create its own section called relevant experience, put that at the forefront, and then have additional experience under that, which will then be in chronological order. So that's just one case that you might want to change the order and how you can do it so that, what you want to highlight is at the top. Because like I said, employers are looking at resumes pretty quickly. That is a great strategy. Awesome. Okay, how do you start each bullet point that details your experiences? So in that experience section, you're going to have several bullet points. How do you start the bullet point? With an action word, yes. So you will want to start each bullet point with an action verb. And the resume guide packet that we sent to you, I believe last Friday, it actually has a whole sheet of action verbs there, because sometimes it can be hard to think of original ones and you don't want to use the same one over and over again. So there's actually a whole sheet in there that has a bunch of action verbs that you can pull from, which is really helpful. Also, just a note on tense. So if you are still involved in an experience, like I'm currently working at Starbucks and it's on my resume, you'll want all your action verbs to be in present tense. Now, if there's an experience in the past, like last summer I was a camp counselor, but I'm not doing that anymore, you'll put it in past tense, and you'll want to keep that consistent as well. Okay, and then last question here, should you use a pre-made template? Any guesses? No, yes, that's correct. So you don't want to use a pre-made template. There's a bunch of them out there. I know they can be so enticing, but you will want to start with a blank Word document. If you don't have Word for any reason, you can download it for free through UMass's website. If you don't have room on your computer for Word, you can always use a blank Google Doc and then save that as a PDF after. But the reason you don't want to use a template is a couple reasons. It can be harder to edit. A resume is an evolving document, so you're going to always be editing it depending on where you're applying, as you have additional experiences you want to add. And it can be really hard when there's like little template pieces that you have to edit through. And then another really big reason you don't want to use a template is those applicant tracking software systems that I spoke about, the computer systems that read through your application materials, have a really hard time picking up templates, especially a lot of templates have columns. and they won't read past that first column. So if you have a ton of good information on that second column, it's all going to be missed out, and you probably aren't going to match, with the requirements for the job because they're not reading half of your information. So to just ensure that you get through those software systems, using a blank Word document is the best. Okay, so I might come back to this given time, doing some practice with resumes, but I'm going to skip it for right now and see if we have time at the end. Okay, before I go into cover letter writing, do we have any questions about resumes, anything you're still wondering or confused about? No, good to go. Okay, let's jump into cover letters. Okay, so here is an example of a cover letter that is really well done. And so I just wanted to start with sharing this, and of course you'll get the recording as well afterwards. I'm not going to read through the entire cover letter, but what's going to be really important is what you include in each kind of section. So you have your leading paragraph, you have a middle paragraph or a couple middle paragraphs, and then you have your final ending paragraph. And so we're going to walk through what you really want to have within each section of this cover letter. And again, you can see one full page, single spaced, and it's really written like a letter, to the hiring committee, dear hiring committee is how you'll start, and you'll end it by signing it with your name. Okay, so again, you'll address it to the hiring manager. If you have their name, that's great. The more personal you can make it, the better. So if their name is in the job posting, or if you can go on LinkedIn and find who you're writing to, awesome. If you can't, then you can use something more generic like dear hiring manager or dear search committee. That first paragraph, that's really your lead in. That's really where you want to compel the reader to keep reading and be interested in you as a candidate. So you'll want to start by including what you're applying to, right? Just in case there's multiple positions they're hiring for at an organization. And then really you'll want to find that connection point with your audience. So why are you really passionate about applying to this position? What is your connection to the organization that you're applying to? Is it, that you align with their mission and their values? Is it that you have loved watching their news station since you were 7 and now you have a chance to contribute to them, right? Finding something that ties you with that employer or that person that you're writing to. And that's really going to help them see why you're motivated to do that work, why you're really interested in them, and make them feel like, oh, okay, this isn't just a generic cover letter that they're writing to everyone. They really care about us. And that's what employers really want to see. So then in the middle paragraph or paragraphs, this could be, 2 to 3 paragraphs, you're really going to get into the skills that you're bringing to this position. And so you're going to do that through talking about the experiences that you've had, but always bringing it back to the skill that you learned from that experience. So we'll go over some examples, but the skills that you want to talk about, right, again, are going to come from the job posting. So instead of just speaking about random skills that you have or past jobs that you've had, really thinking about, okay, what is this job looking for? What is this internship looking for in a candidate? And how can I show them I have those skills? And you really want to be very open and specific about these. You don't want to think, oh, they'll probably infer that I'm good on a team because I've done this and that. You really want to spell it out for them. Again, they're probably looking at a bunch of applications quickly. So the more you can just really clearly show them, I have what you are looking for, the more you're going to get through to that next round and get to that interview stage. And then the last paragraph is really kind of your summary, your overview of why you're a great candidate. So kind of tying in together why both your interests plus your experiences equal you being awesome for this role. Always thanking them for reading your application materials and taking the time, and letting them know the best way to follow up with you, whether that's by phone or by email, and then signing your name at the end. Okay, so the STAR method is really a great way to think about how to talk about those experiences that you want to detail on your cover letter. So this can be, kind of the tricky part of a cover letter of how do I explain the skills that I have and go into how I have these skills in such a short amount of space and time, right? So the STAR method really helps you think through this. And this is also in the cover letter guide that we sent you. So you can look through that too and have that to start building your different skills and experiences. And I will mention here that every cover letter is different, right? Because it is so specific to the role you're applying to. Resume is a little more static. You will want to change it for each position depending on the skills that they're looking for. But cover letter, it's very hard to use the same one over and over again at all, because you really want to speak to the hiring manager, to the organization. So the STAR method, it's an acronym. It's situation, task, action, result. So when thinking about explaining, an experience that you've had, you will want to start with what the situation was, right? Like, where was the experience that you had? Giving that background, not too much, not getting into a whole long story, but just a little bit of background of where were you, what was happening, and then the task. What is it that you had to do? Maybe you were asked to do something. Maybe you had to take on a new responsibility for a project. Really having that specific information of the task that you had to complete. And then sharing the action. So what did you do to overcome the obstacle or to complete the task? What is it that you did, right? And sharing the skills and expertise that you have to actually do it. And that's the action piece. And then what was the result? So what was the impact? What happened because of the actions that you took? Did you solve the problem? Did you gain more skills? What did it teach you? And so always rounding it out with that result of what happened. And the more you can quantify what happened and have really specifics of the results, that's what employers really like to see, because they can really understand what happened and really see the story clearly, the more specific you can get. Same with on the resume, the more you can add metrics and quantify things, the better, because just saying that you planned an event is one thing, but saying you planned an event for 200 people really paints the picture a little bit more, right? So this STAR method is helpful when you really want to think about how you're going to explain a situation and then the skills that you got from it. Okay, so let's do an example. So this is from the cover letter example that I showed at the beginning. So what are the transferable skills that you see in this example? Do you see any transferable skills that we've talked about so far?
Yep.
Yep, awesome. Being a good listener and communicator. Awesome. Problem solver, yes. Great. So yeah, this is a really good example of kind of both the STAR method and the transferable skills. Teamwork, yep, exactly. So you can see that this person started off with a really clear explanation. My role as a peer tutor on campus gave me the opportunity to grow my interpersonal skills. So really taking the context of the situation but then going right into what happened because of that situation. So always bringing it back to why does it matter? Not just going into, I was a peer tutor and it was a cool opportunity and met a lot of people. It's like, no, what was the result? And then really getting into those skills. In order to be successful in this role, I needed to be a good listener and communicator. It was important to work together with students to figure out where things were getting confusing and how to solve problems. And then what was the action, right? And then what was the result? This ensured students were learning rather than just getting answered. We worked as a team to find a solution, see how that was added in there. It didn't have to be its own, sentence of I'm great at teamwork, but how did you work as a team? What was happening where you had to work as a team and why did it matter? So that's just an example. And I do want to remind you that we can help with cover letters. I know they can be a little bit intimidating sometimes because, they are so specific to the job that you're applying to. And I will say the more you write them, the more you get comfortable with them. But that's something that you can meet with us in our one-on-one handshake appointments to go over.
I was going to reference that too. I feel like a lot of times when I meet with students about cover letters, the hardest part is sometimes just getting started writing it. So sometimes it's even better to, you just pull up a blank Word document and start writing like what comes to mind, like what opportunities jump out from my resume that I want to highlight to an employer. And then just start typing and, then go back and reflect on it, because sometimes it is the hardest part just to get started.
That's so true. And you can always go back and edit it. And like we've said, like we're all friendly and we're here to help. So even if you feel like, oh my gosh, I only have like 2 paragraphs done, you can still come see us at that point. I mean, I just worked with a student and we met several times with the same cover letter iterations until it was really just so good, spoke to the job, showed her skills in the best way. And that's something that, sometimes you have to work through. And after you do that first one, the next one will get easier and easier. But definitely something that is necessary and you will see it. And actually, I think on the next slide, I'm going to get a little bit into that. So I like to reframe cover letters because they get a bad rap. So I used to think this too, oh, really? I have to write a cover letter for this application? Like a whole cover letter? That's like writing a paper, right? Like, is this necessary? This is what I thought for years. But actually what I've learned over the years, and I learned this first as, actually I was in college and I was applying for my first internship. And in one of my interviews, the employer said, your cover letter really impressed us. And this was a job where I wasn't the typical candidate. Most of the other candidates came from business schools, and I went to UMass and majored in economics and sociology. And so I was a little bit different of a candidate. So what I was able to really do with the cover letter is show why I was still going to be great at this business. Even though I don't have the traditional business school background, I got to share my story and show why my unique, combination of understanding people and society plus economics actually makes me, a really unique candidate that can think differently than other people. And I want to be able to do that on a resume. The cover letter is your chance to show your story, show what your passions and interests are, and really connect with that employer. So when you think about it that way, it feels a lot better to do than just thinking of, oh, I have to do this. I hear from a lot of students also is, this probably isn't necessary. I'm just going to send the resume. And, a lot of times you will see that cover letters are optional even sometimes, not always, but sometimes they're optional. I really do recommend sending one every time if it's optional, because that is how you're going to stand out among other candidates. So just think, if you're an employer, you're a hiring manager, and you have 10 applicants and 9 of them just have a resume and 1 has a resume and a whole page about why they really want this position, all the skills that fit, to the role that, they're looking for, I'm automatically going to think, wow, this person already is going above and beyond, already, is above these other candidates who I don't really know as much about. So it really can help you stand out, especially in those cases. Okay, let's do a little skills check. How long should a cover letter be? A page, yes, exactly. So just like the resume, easy to remember, also one page, single spaced, usually 3 to 4 paragraphs. How do you know what experiences or skills to write about on your cover letter? So, you've all had a lot of experiences in your life. How do you know which ones to focus on?
Maybe the ones that are transferable, right? So like
Mm,
highlighting the top skills that appear like in the job description.
yes, exactly. So really thinking about those transferable skills and where did you get them, right? So let's say they really want that person who's a great communicator and team player. Okay, where have I learned those skills? And who do you address the cover letter to? Any guesses? Okay, I'll give it to you. Oh, wait. Okay, thank you.
Yes.
Hiring manager. Awesome. You are correct. So personalize it by adjusting it to the hiring manager. Again, if you can find the name, awesome. People like that personalization. But if you can't, which is often the case, you can just adjust it to the hiring manager generally. And how does a cover letter end? How do you close out? Close out the cover letter.
Is it signing your name?
Thank you. And then signing your name. So always, expressing your gratitude for them taking the time to read your cover letter and sign your name. It is a letter format. It's kind of old school. So that's something that you might forget, but you can also just type it, right? You don't actually have to sign it with a pen. Okay, so let's open up for questions. And then also tomorrow we'll be talking about signature programs. So we have a lot of awesome internship programs in Boston and DC. So definitely recommend checking that out tomorrow, same time. And also really recommend that you make an appointment on Handshake to get your resume reviewed. Now that you've kind of learned a little bit more about it, or maybe you're writing a cover letter right now, make that appointment. We do meet with students all throughout the summer. So really, whenever you want to make one, we are open and ready, and you'll be ahead of the game for next year. Anyone have any questions about cover letters, resumes?
Or has anyone started to work on one over the summer, or maybe for like a future internship or job position?
Yeah, where are you all at with your resume?
I haven't even started, but because I don't have any skills that I can think of so far.
I would encourage you to start even thinking about skills that you've learned in the classroom. So thinking about what classes you've taken. And sometimes it's things like, oh, I worked on a group project. That's teamwork, right? That's totally teamwork. It doesn't necessarily have to be in that work setting yet. But another great thing to think about for you too is as you're building skills, start looking at internships that you might be interested in someday. And you can look through Handshake and start seeing what are the skills that those jobs want, what are the qualifications that they want in a candidate. And that's going to help you know what skills to start building and working on. So you'll probably notice patterns too if there's like a specific industry or type of internship that you want to go into. And then you can think about, okay, how could I, have more leadership skills or effectively communicate, and kind of challenging yourself to build those in different ways. That could be through, joining some clubs and extracurriculars this fall. It could also be doing online courses through LinkedIn Learning, attending this workshop. You're learning a lot of skills that you could actually add to a resume right now. So I think it's probably the great time to start building one. And again, we can really help you work through those specific things that you might want to add to your resume.
Okay, thank you.
As for me, I have a resume. Yeah. But I'm still working on trying to get more skills for the next internship I'm going to apply for.
Great. That's wonderful. Yeah, like Odessa, you were just saying, thinking about what you can still be doing over the summer as well to make improvements or enhancements to your resumes and cover letters. So if that means scheduling a one-on-one handshake appointment with one of your SBS career advisors, absolutely, that's going to help you stay on track with like those SMART goals that we talked about on day one. So absolutely thinking of, what are some things that I could be doing now that's going to help me feel more prepared for the fall semester? So that's something to definitely be processing over this summer, thinking about.
Yeah, summer is a great time to, kind of get ahead, and you all being here this week is super awesome because it's information that unless you're really seeking it out, you can easily just go through college without knowing it and get to your senior year and go, oh, wow, I have to apply to a job now. How do I do that? So the fact that you're all starting now is so good, and it's just going to help you throughout the process. And then just knowing that it's going to evolve, your resume is going to evolve, your cover letters are going to evolve, and that's all part of it too.
Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you all. It's great to chat with you all again today. Stop sharing. And we hope to see you tomorrow.
Yeah. All right. Bye. Have a great day, guys. Goodbye.
Bye.
You too.
Thank you.
I have a quick question though.
Yeah.
Can you send me the slides for today?
Yes, definitely. We can send the slides out. And then also, I know I promised yesterday's slides too, so we can get those out as well.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. Have a good rest of your day. See you tomorrow, hopefully.